John Miller stood alone in the center of the enormous round chamber. Hundreds of alien eyes watched him from rising seats that circled the room like a giant bowl. Some had many eyes, some had just one. Their bodies were all different shapes and colors, but they all looked at John the same way, with fear and anger. "The vote is final," said the tall blue alien with 4 arms. His voice boomed through the chamber. "By unanimous decision, humanity is banned from all travel beyond their solar system. You have 1 galactic year to return all humans to Earth and destroy your faster-than-light technology." John tried to stay calm, but his hands shook. "Please reconsider. We have followed all your rules. We have traded fairly. We have helped when—" "You adapt too quickly," interrupted a small green creature with scales. "You change too much. You ask too many questions. You break things without understanding them first." "That's how we learn," John said. "That is why you are dangerous," replied the 4-armed alien. "This meeting is over." John walked slowly back to his ship. The halls of the Galactic Council station felt cold. Aliens moved away as he passed, as if he carried a disease. His assistant, a young woman named Karen Lee, waited at the ship's door. "How bad?" she asked. "Total ban. We have 1 year to pull back everyone beyond Mars." Karen's face went pale. "There are over 50,000 humans spread across 27 worlds." "I know." John stepped inside the ship. "Let's go home. The president needs to hear this directly." The trip back to Earth took 3 days. John spent most of it staring at the stars, wondering how many of them humans would never see up close again. President Diane Powell met them in the White House Oval Office. She was a tall woman with dark skin and gray hair who rarely showed emotion. But when John finished his report, she sat down heavily in her chair. "They fear us that much?" she asked. "Yes, Madam President. They say we're unpredictable." The president looked out the window at the Washington Monument in the distance. "Gather the Joint Chiefs, the heads of NASA and the Space Commerce Department, and the top 5 private space company CEOs. Meeting in 2 hours." Later that day, President Powell addressed the world. Her face was calm and serious on screens around the globe. "My fellow citizens of Earth, today the Galactic Council has ordered all humans to return to our solar system within 1 year. They have banned us from traveling among the stars." She paused as millions of people gasped or cried out. "I ask for calm. I ask for patience. We will comply with this ruling while seeking diplomatic solutions." But after the cameras were turned off, President Powell gathered a different group in a secure room deep beneath the White House. Dr. Alan Grant, the physicist who had developed Earth's first faster-than-light drive, sat across from General Samantha Ellis, the head of Space Command. 5 other people joined them, the best minds in science, strategy, and survival. "Now," said the president, "tell me the truth. Can we survive being locked in our solar system?" Dr. Grant shook his head. "Not long-term. We've become dependent on resources from other worlds." "And if we fight the Council directly?" she asked General Ellis. "We lose. Badly. They outnumber us thousands to 1. The president nodded. "Then we need a third option." She pressed a button, and a holographic map of the galaxy appeared above the table. "We appear to comply. We bring our official ships home. We dismantle our registered FTL drives." She looked at each person in the room. "And then we vanish into the darkness between the stars." Dr. Grant looked confused. "You want us to run?" "No," said the president. "I want us to hide, to prepare, to build something the Council cannot see or control." She pointed to the outer edges of the galaxy map. "There's a lot of space out there, and humanity is very, very good at adapting." 6 months passed quickly. On the surface, Earth obeyed the Council's rules. Big ships came home. Space stations were taken apart. News channels showed the work and sent the videos to the Council. But deep in the asteroid belt, far from watching eyes, something else was happening. Frank Martinez checked the pressure seals on his family's small ship one last time. Around him, the hidden dock inside the hollow asteroid was busy with people loading supplies into dozens of similar ships. "Dad, are you sure this is going to work?" Eric asked. At 16, he was tall like his father but skinny, with dark hair that fell into his eyes. "No," Frank said honestly, "but staying isn't an option." Lisa Martinez appeared with their daughter Amy. Both carried the last of their personal bags. "The plants are secured in the cargo hold," Lisa said. As a botanist, she had spent years developing crops that could grow in different alien soils. "Good," Frank said. "We launch in 20 minutes. This is the third group leaving today." All around them, families said goodbye to relatives staying behind. Some cried. Some tried to be brave. All of them knew they might never see Earth again. Captain Olivia Wright walked through the crowd toward the Martinez family. Her uniform had no badges or flags, nothing to show she was from Earth. "Your ship is checked and cleared," she told Frank. "Remember, once you leave this dock, maintain radio silence. Follow the coded route exactly. The jump points aren't on any council maps." "Where will you be?" asked Lisa. "Running supplies on the Nightshade. We'll drop care packages at each colony every 6 months." She handed them a small metal disc. "This will signal only to our ships. Use it only in emergencies." The warning lights flashed red. Time to board. The Martinez family joined the line of people climbing into their ships. On the other side of the solar system, beneath the icy surface of Titan, Saturn's largest moon, another secret operation was underway. Dr. Alan Grant walked through an enormous underground factory where workers built strange engines. "How many completed?" asked President Powell through the secure video link. 57 so far, Grant said. "We've solved the radiation problem. These drives won't leave any trace that Council sensors can detect." And the ships, being assembled in pieces, small enough to smuggle out in mining vessels, we're putting them together at the rendezvous points. The president nodded. "The Council representatives arrive tomorrow for their 6-month inspection. They'll see exactly what they expect to see. And nothing of what we're actually doing," Grant said with a small smile. 3 days later, in what became known as the Silent Departure, over 2,000 unmarked ships slipped away from hidden docks throughout the solar system. They carried nearly 15,000 people: scientists, farmers, soldiers, teachers, doctors, and their families. The Martinez ship followed its programmed course away from the sun. Lissa held Amy as the girl cried softly. Eric stared out the window, watching Earth become a small blue dot, then vanish completely. "How far is our new home?" he asked. "Ta Ceti system," Frank said. "About 12 light years. Will there be other people?" "We're the third group sent to that moon. About 500 people should be there already, building the first settlement." In the cockpit, Frank checked their course one more time. The ship would make 7 random jumps before reaching their final destination, a path designed to be impossible to track. On the Nightshade, Captain Wright plotted her own course. Her ship was faster and more heavily armed than the civilian vessels. Her job was more dangerous, too. She would map new routes, find resources, and keep an eye on Council movements. As her ship accelerated away from the solar system, Wright looked at the star map. Humanity was spreading out to 27 secret locations, none of them on Council charts. Places where they could hide, grow stronger, and wait. "Let them think they've caged us," she whispered to herself. "They have no idea what they've really done." She didn't know it yet, but she was right. The Council's ban hadn't stopped humanity. It had scattered them like seeds across the galaxy. 3 years passed since the ban. The Galactic Council believed they had solved the human problem. Reports showed Earth obeying the rules. No human ships were seen beyond Mars. The Council moved on to other matters. Then the attacks began. They came from the darkness between stars, strange ships that looked like crystal spiders. They did not talk. They did not warn. They simply came and took everything: energy, resources, even the life force of living beings. The council called them the Voidborn. On the planet Nebulon IV, a world of tall purple trees and 3 small moons, Jack Sanders fixed a broken engine. He was not supposed to be there. No human was, but the small repair shop at the edge of Nebulon's capital city didn't ask questions when Jack arrived 2 years ago. He did good work. That was all that mattered. Jack looked up as the shop's owner, a tall insect-like alien named Cricht, rushed in. "You must see," Cricht said, waving his forearms. "The sky." Outside, everyone stood looking up. Strange lights flashed above the clouds. Then a crystal ship larger than most buildings broke through the sky and hovered over the city. "What is it?" someone asked. Jack knew. He had seen the reports passed secretly between human colonies. "Trouble," he said. "Big trouble." Smaller crystal ships poured out of the large one. They shot beams of white light that turned buildings to dust. People ran screaming. "We need to go," Jack told Cricht. "Now." But where? The spaceport was on the other side of the city. The streets were full of running, scared people. Jack saw a public transport bus sitting empty, its driver having run away. "I can drive that," he said. Cricht looked unsure. "The council's emergency plan says to go to the shelters." "The shelters won't stop those things," Jack said. He ran to the bus and jumped in the driver's seat. "Anyone coming with me? Get on now." 20 people climbed aboard. Shop owners, workers, and customers from nearby buildings. Most were Nebulonians like Cricht, but there were 3 other species too. Jack was the only human. He drove fast through side streets, avoiding the worst crowds. Above them, more crystal ships appeared. Buildings fell. Fires started. "Where are you taking us?" asked a scared Nebulonian child. "The old mining tunnels," Jack said. "Under the hills. The ground will block their scans." No one asked how he knew this. They were too afraid. At the edge of the city, Jack drove the bus up a dirt road. It hadn't been used in years. Trees had grown over parts of it. The bus scraped against branches and rocks. Behind them, half the city was burning. "The Council Defense Fleet should be here soon," said an older Nebulonian. "They will save us." Jack said nothing. He had seen what happened on other worlds. The Council ships always came too late. Their weapons did little against the crystal ships. Their tactics never changed, even when they didn't work. They reached the old mining entrance. Jack broke the lock with a tool from his belt. "Everyone inside," he said. "Quickly." Deep in the tunnels, they found other people who had the same idea. Soon there were over 100 scared aliens sitting in the darkness. "What do we do now?" Cricht asked Jack. Jack pulled a small metal disc from his pocket, the same kind Captain Wright gave to colonists. He pressed it 3 times. A silent signal shot into space. "Now we fight," Jack said. He opened his repair kit and started taking parts out. "These tools can be weapons. These chemicals can burn. We can set traps." The aliens stared at him. "The Council rules say to wait for help," one said. "I'm not Council," Jack replied. "I'm human, and humans don't just wait to die." 3 days later, when a small unmarked ship landed outside the mining tunnels, the pilot found something unexpected. Not just survivors, but fighters. Led by Jack Sanders, they had saved over 300 people and destroyed 7 Voidborn scout ships. Watching from the shadows was Council Security Officer Zethkar. He had come to arrest any humans he found breaking the ban. Instead, he saw something that made him question everything the Council had taught him. News of the Voidborn spread across Council space. More worlds were attacked. Big cities fell. Millions died. The Council ships fought back, but always lost. Their plans never changed. The Voidborn learned their ways too quickly. But stories also spread. Whispers of humans appearing when things were worst. Humans who fought differently. Humans who saved lives and disappeared. In a small apartment on the Council Capital World, Maria Hudson looked at the maps on her wall. Red marks showed where the Voidborn had attacked. Blue marks showed where human teams were helping. Green marks showed safe routes between stars that only humans knew about. Maria had once been a diplomat at the Council before the ban. Now she ran a secret network called Earthlink. Hundreds of humans worked for her, moving quietly through Council space. Her computer beeped. A message appeared. She read it and smiled. Another success, she told her assistant, Greg Porter. The team on Lyra II got 500 people out before the Voidborn arrived. Greg nodded. He was young, only 25, but he was good with computers and codes. That's the fourth rescue this week. We're getting better at predicting where they'll attack next. Maria looked at her maps again. We need to get this information to Dr. Rogers. Dr. Kevin Rogers worked in a secret lab buried under the ice on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The Council thought all humans were trapped in the solar system. They didn't know about the hidden lab or the scientists who worked there day and night. Rogers studied pieces of Voidborn ships that human teams had collected. The crystal material was unlike anything he had seen before. It absorbed energy in strange ways. Try it again, he told his team. Different frequency this time. They fired up the engine they had built, a modified human FTL drive. It hummed and glowed. The crystal sample in the test chamber vibrated. Higher, Rogers said. Keep going up. The engine whined as they pushed it harder. Suddenly, the crystal sample cracked. Then it shattered into dust. Rogers stared. Then he laughed. That's it. They can't handle that frequency. He turned to his assistant. Get me a secure line to Maria Hudson. We found their weakness. The next day, human ships across the galaxy received a coded message. Captain Olivia Wright read it on the bridge of the Nightshade. New orders, she told her crew. We're modifying our engines. All of them. A young officer looked worried. Will it work? Dr. Rogers hasn't been wrong yet, Wright said. And we need something to work. The Voidborn are getting closer to our hidden colonies. Meanwhile, in the Council Science Center, alien scientists argued. They had been studying the Voidborn for months but found no weakness. We need to try something new, said a young scientist named Lore. We follow procedure, said the chief scientist. The old ways are safe and tested. The old ways are failing, Lore said. Enough. The chief scientist slammed his hand down. We will not break protocol. Every test must be approved. Every theory must be checked by 3 senior scientists. Those are the rules. Lore walked away, frustrated. In his private lab, he opened a hidden panel in the wall. Inside was a small communication device, human-made. He had found it in the ruins of a Voidborn attack, where humans had saved his family. He activated it. This is Lore. I want to help. On Earth, President Powell met with her secret council. What's our status? General Ellis showed a hologram of the galaxy. The Voidborn have hit 23 major council worlds. Our teams have been able to evacuate thousands, but millions are still dying. And Dr. Rogers' discovery. We're implementing it now. All human ships are being modified to emit the frequency that disrupts Voidborn crystal, but we need larger emitters to affect their bigger ships. Can we build them? Dr. Grant nodded. Yes, but we'll need resources we don't have. We need allies. Powell looked at the map. The Council would never admit they need us. Maybe not the whole Council, said John Miller, who had been freed from house arrest to join this meeting. But individual members might, especially those whose worlds are next in the Voidborn's path. Powell thought for a moment. Make a list. Find the Council members most likely to work with us. It's time to come out of hiding. Council member Torlath paced nervously in his private chamber. His skin, normally a healthy blue, had turned pale with worry. Reports showed the Voidborn were only days away from his homeworld. The Council defense ships were already failing on the outer edges of the Trilaxian system. His assistant entered the room. It's ready, she said, handing him a small device. Zorlath looked at the communication device. Using it was against council laws. Talking to humans was forbidden. But watching his people die would be worse. He pressed the button. This is Council Member Zorlath of the Trilaxian people. Our world faces destruction by the Voidborn. The Council cannot help us. If there are humans listening, please respond. The reply came faster than he expected. A woman's voice, calm and clear. This is President Powell of Earth. We've been expecting your call. 2 days later, a fleet of ships appeared at the edge of the Trilaxian system. They didn't look like normal human ships. These were sleeker, darker, with strange blue lights glowing along their sides. The flagship was massive, with the name Defiance painted on its hull. On its bridge stood Admiral Daniel Morris, a tall man with dark skin and a serious face. "Status report," he ordered. "Voidborn main fleet is approaching the 4th planet," reported his second-in-command. "Trilaxian forces are retreating to protect their homeworld." Morris nodded. "Send the modified frequency data to the Trilaxian ships. Tell them to adjust their shields and weapons immediately. Then move us between the Voidborn and the homeworld." "Sir," said a young officer, "the Trilaxian battle doctrine says they must maintain formation and—" "They can keep their formation if they want," Morris interrupted. "But they need to use our frequencies or they'll die in their pretty lines." The Defiance moved forward, leading 50 human ships toward the advancing Voidborn. Behind them, the Trilaxian homeworld glowed green and blue in the light of its sun. "All ships, prepare to engage," Morris ordered. "Use pattern Omega-3. Hit and move. Don't stay still for more than 5 seconds." The human ships broke formation, each moving in seemingly random directions. The Voidborn crystal ships tried to track them but couldn't predict their movements. The Defiance fired its main weapon, a cannon that pulsed with the exact frequency Dr. Rogers had discovered. When the beam hit a Voidborn ship, the crystal cracked and shattered. "It's working," someone shouted. Morris remained calm. "Keep firing. Stay mobile. They'll adapt if we get predictable." The battle raged for hours. At first, the Trilaxian ships stayed in their ordered formations, following their ancient battle plans. But as they watched the humans dance through space, changing tactics every few minutes, some began to break away. "What are they doing?" Morris asked. "Sir, 3 Trilaxian captains are requesting permission to join our attack pattern." Morris smiled. "Grant permission. Show them how we fight." By the end of the day, the Voidborn fleet was in retreat. 15 human ships had been damaged, and 3 destroyed. But they had saved the Trilaxian homeworld and its billions of inhabitants. On the surface, Admiral Morris met with Zorlath. They stood in a grand hall filled with Trilaxian officials and some of the human officers. "How did you do it?" Zorlath asked. "How did you know they would break when hit with that frequency?" "We experimented," Morris said simply. "We tried things. We failed many times before we found what worked." The council said this makes humans dangerous. "It does," Morris agreed. "But right now, dangerous is exactly what the galaxy needs." Zorlath was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I have sent messages to other council members whose worlds are in danger. I told them what happened here. And 7 have already replied. They want your help, Admiral." Zorlath looked troubled. "The council is splitting. Some members say working with humans is betrayal. Others say it's survival." Morris nodded. "Tell them we'll help, but they need to understand something important." "What's that?" "We won't hide anymore. And after this war, things will change." The Grand Council chamber was no longer quiet and orderly. Members shouted at each other across the room. Some stood, waving their arms or tentacles in anger. Others pounded on tables. "Silence," roared the head council member, a tall 6-eyed being named Vortek. "We must have order." No one listened. The council was split down the middle. Half wanted to lift the ban on humans immediately. They had seen the reports from Trilaxia and 7 other worlds where human ships had defeated the Voidborn. The other half insisted humans were still too dangerous to trust. "The rules are clear," said an old council member with gray scales. "Any species that works with banned humans must also be banned." "Then ban us," shouted Exorlath. "Ban all 8 of our worlds. We will join the humans and survive while you sit here and argue until the Voidborn come for you too." Suddenly, alarms blared through the chamber. Red lights flashed on all the walls. "What is happening?" demanded Vortek. A security officer rushed in. "Voidborn ships have entered the Centauri system. They're heading straight for this world." Silence fell over the room. Centauri Prime was the capital world of the Council, thought to be the safest place in the galaxy. If it could be attacked, nowhere was safe. "How many ships?" asked Vortek, his voice shaking. "Over 200. The defense fleet is already engaging them, but—" The officer's communication device beeped. "Sir, they report the Voidborn are breaking through. Estimated time until they reach the planet: 3 hours." Panic swept through the chamber. Council members rushed toward the exits, pushing and shoving. Guards tried to maintain order, but fear was stronger than training. "We must evacuate all council members immediately," Vortek announced. "The emergency ships are ready in the underground hangar." As they hurried through the grand halls of the council building, emergency lights flashed overhead. Through the large windows, they could see the first explosions in the sky as the battle reached the upper atmosphere. In the hangar, council ships waited. But as the first members approached the ships, the hangar doors suddenly opened. Everyone froze, expecting Voidborn attackers. Instead, human ships flew in. The largest one landed in the center of the hangar. Its door opened, and a woman in a dark uniform walked out. On her shoulder was the rank of Fleet Admiral, and her nameplate read Natalie Cooper. "By order of the Council Defense Committee, we are here to evacuate high-value personnel," she announced. "We have our own ships," Vortek said coldly. Admiral Cooper shook her head. "Your ships don't have the frequency shields. The Voidborn will tear them apart before they clear the atmosphere." She looked at the assembled council members. "You can come with us and live, or take your chances. Your choice." Hexorlath stepped forward immediately. "I will go with the humans." 7 other council members joined him. Vortek looked torn. Finally, he nodded. "We will accept your assistance." As they boarded the human ships, explosions rocked the building above them. "We need to hurry," Cooper said. "My ground teams won't be able to hold the Voidborn back much longer." "Ground teams?" asked a council member. "Special forces, led by Colonel Peter Hayes. They're fighting through the city to rescue trapped civilians and officials." Cooper checked her screen. "They've already saved over 5,000 people." "But the council voted," began Vortek. "With all respect," Cooper interrupted, "your vote doesn't matter much right now." The human ships rose from the hangar just as the ceiling began to collapse. Through the viewports, the council members could see Centauri Prime burning. Crystal ships floated above the tallest buildings, firing destruction down on the beautiful city. But they also saw smaller ships darting between buildings, rescuing people. "Human ships. The Voidborn are targeting the council tower directly," reported a human officer. Colonel Hayes reports they seem specifically focused on council symbols and buildings. Admiral Cooper frowned. "That's new behavior. They've never shown that kind of targeted strategy before." Vortek looked at her with new worry in his 6 eyes. "What does that mean?" "It means," Cooper said slowly, "that this isn't just random destruction. The Voidborn aren't just eating energy. They're hunting the council itself." The grand meeting room in the White House looked strange, filled with alien council members. They sat uncomfortably in chairs designed for human bodies. Some had to stand. None of them looked happy to be on Earth, a planet they had banned humans from leaving. President Powell entered the room. "Welcome to Earth," she said. I know this isn't where you expected to find safety. Vortek, still acting as head council member, nodded stiffly. We are grateful for your assistance. Good, Powell said, because now we need answers. She pressed a button, and a large screen on the wall lit up. It showed pictures of void-born ships and attack patterns. These attackers aren't random. They target council worlds. They focus on council buildings. Why? The council members looked at each other. No one spoke. Fine, Powell said. While you think about that, we'll share what we found. She nodded to a woman standing near the door. Chief Science Officer Linda Warren will present our research. Linda stepped forward. She was tall with short gray hair and tired eyes. She hadn't slept much in weeks. When we studied pieces of void-born ships, we found something strange. Their crystal structure has artificial patterns. They weren't born. They were made. The room was silent. Some council members looked shocked. Others looked down at the floor. Made by whom? Asked Powell, watching their faces carefully. No one answered. Exorlaf finally stood up. Tell them, he said to the other council members. They deserve to know. Vortek sighed heavily. There is a group within the council. They call themselves the Preservers. They believe the galaxy should remain unchanged, stable, safe. Safe for whom? Powell asked. For established species. For the old order. Vortek wouldn't meet her eyes. When a species develops too quickly, asks too many questions, changes too much. Like humans, Powell said. Yes, like humans, and others before you. Vortek looked tired and old. The Preservers created the Voidborn centuries ago. They used them to remove problems. The room erupted in angry shouts. Powell raised her hand for silence. How many species? She asked quietly. 17, Vortek answered. 17 species were eliminated. Their worlds were attacked by what appeared to be natural disasters or unknown enemies. The survivors were helped by the Council, relocated, their technologies lost, their questions forgotten. Linda Warren stepped forward again. The Voidborn were designed to be controlled by special signals, but something has gone wrong, hasn't it? They're not following orders anymore. Vortek nodded slowly. The Preservers tried to use them again to solve the human problem. But this time, the Voidborn broke free from control. Now they attack all Council worlds because they see the Council itself as their creator and their enemy. President Powell looked around the room at the aliens who had banned her people from space. Some looked ashamed. Some looked defiant. Some just looked scared. 17 species, she said. 17 civilizations wiped out because they were too creative, too curious, too much like us. She shook her head. And now you're here, asking us to save you from your own weapon. An old council member stood shakily. Not all of us knew, he said. Many of us believed the stories about natural disasters. We didn't know we were helping to cover up genocide. Powell was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Linda, show them what we've planned. Linda activated a hologram in the center of the room. It showed a massive device. This is a controlled singularity generator. Dr. Rogers designed it based on our study of the Voidborn. We believe it can collapse their network, shut them down permanently. Can you build it? Asked Exorlaf. We already have, Powell said. But we need ships to protect it until it can be activated at the Voidborn's main cluster. We need allies. One by one, council members began to stand. First Exorlaf, then 10 more, then another 15. Soon, almost 2/3 of them were standing. The council is broken, Exorlaf said. But we will stand with humanity against this threat we helped create. And after? Powell asked. If we win. If we win, Exorlaf said. Everything must change. 1 year later, a massive fleet gathered at the edge of known space. 300 ships from 26 different species flew side by side. At the center was the largest human ship ever built, the Prometheus Rising, commanded by Captain Ryan Baker. Inside its huge cargo hold sat Dr. Rogers' singularity device. It looked simple, just a metal sphere with glowing blue lines across its surface. But it had taken the combined knowledge of human scientists and friendly alien engineers to build it. On the bridge, Captain Baker looked at the star map. A red dot showed their target, the main Voidborn cluster, where thousands of crystal ships gathered around a strange energy cloud. "All ships report ready, Captain," said his first officer. Baker nodded. He was young for such an important command, only 38, with short brown hair and serious eyes. "Send the signal. Operation Rebirth begins now." Across the fleet, ships jumped to light speed. They appeared near the cluster in perfect formation. Immediately, crystal ships began to move toward them. "They've spotted us," said the sensor officer, reading over 5,000 Voidborn vessels moving to attack. "Deploy the shield ships," Baker ordered. 50 ships moved forward, forming a protective half-circle. They activated special generators that pulsed with Dr. Rogers' frequency. When Voidborn ships hit this invisible wall, they cracked and broke apart. But there were too many. Some got through. Explosions lit up space as ships on both sides were hit. "We need to get closer," Baker said. "The device must be within 10,000 kilometers of the energy cloud to work." The Prometheus Rising pushed forward, surrounded by protective ships. Voidborn attackers crashed against them wave after wave. Ships exploded. People died. But the fleet kept moving. "Distance to target, 15,000 kilometers," called out the navigator. A massive crystal ship, twice the size of any they had seen before, emerged from the cloud. It fired strange purple beams that cut through shields as if they weren't there. "Evasive action," Baker shouted. The Prometheus Rising turned hard, but was hit along one side. Alarms blared as sections of the ship lost air. "Hull breach on decks 5 through 8, reported an officer. "We've lost the port engines." Baker looked at the damage reports. The ship couldn't take another hit like that, but they still weren't close enough. He made his decision. All non-essential personnel to escape pods. Prepare for emergency separation. The Prometheus Rising had been built in 2 parts. The front section held the bridge and the singularity device. The back section held the main engines and power core. "Sir," his first officer looked concerned. "We're going to use the rear section as a distraction," Baker explained. "Once separated, we'll fire all engines at full power. The explosion should draw their attention while we take the forward section in close enough to activate the device." No one argued. They all knew what was at stake. Separation in 3, 2, 1. Now. The ship split in 2 with a shudder. The rear section shot forward, engines burning bright. As Baker had predicted, the Voidborn ships followed it, attracted to its energy. The forward section of the Prometheus Rising, running on auxiliary power, slipped past the giant crystal ship toward the energy cloud. "Distance to target, 9,000 kilometers. Activate the device," Baker ordered. Dr. Rogers' creation hummed to life. The blue lines glowed brighter. The metal sphere began to spin. "Sir, the Voidborn are turning back toward us." "Too late," Baker said with a small smile. "Tell everyone, it's been an honor." The singularity device reached full power. A black hole formed inside it, perfectly controlled, pulling in the energy that gave the Voidborn life. The energy cloud began to collapse. The crystal ships nearest to the Prometheus Rising stopped moving. Then they fell apart, turning to dust. The effect spread across space like a wave. Everywhere, Voidborn ships suddenly broke apart and drifted away as harmless crystal pieces. On council worlds and human colonies, people watched their skies. The crystal ships that had been attacking them simply fell apart and rained down as shining dust. 1 month later, representatives from all species gathered on neutral ground. A new space station built together. The old council chamber was gone. In its place was a circular room where everyone sat at the same level. Ambassador John Miller, who had once stood alone as humanity was banned, now stood to address them all. "Today we form the Interstellar Alliance," he said, "not to control, but to share, not to limit, but to grow." He looked around at the faces of so many different beings. The stars belong to all of us, and we are stronger together than apart. On the wall behind him hung a simple sign with words in every language of the galaxy.